It starts with a phone call at 6:14 in the morning. You're still in bed, the ceiling fan turning slow above you, the room carrying that particular silence that only exists before the rest of the world wakes up. Your wife is asleep beside you. Your tea is unmade. Outside, a dog is barking at something it doesn't understand. And then your phone lights up the nightstand, and the name on the screen makes you sit upright before you've even decided to move. It's the board chairman. He doesn't call people at 6:14 in the morning to say good things. You press accept and bring the phone to your ear and say nothing, because men like him don't need prompting. He speaks for 90 seconds without pause. The Chief Selector has resigned. Effective immediately. No public statement yet. The board needs a replacement before the press finds out, before the players find out, before anyone finds out. The World Cup qualifying cycle begins in 11 weeks. There are 17 domestic players whose forms need immediate evaluation. There is a test series against the second-ranked team in the world starting in 4 months. And then he says your name like it's already been decided. You don't say yes right away. You sit on the edge of your bed in the grey morning light and you think about what this actually means. You've spent 19 years in this game. Played first-class cricket for 8 of them, never quite good enough for the national call-up, close enough to understand exactly what that rejection feels like in your chest. Then 15 years in regional coaching, talent identification, 2 stints as a selector at the domestic level, 1 very public disagreement with the previous administration that cost you a contract and earned you a reputation for being difficult. Which, in cricket board language, means honest. You say yes. You say yes because you've been watching this national team make the same mistakes for 6 years and you believe, with a certainty that lives somewhere deeper than ego, that you know how to fix them. What you don't yet know is the full weight of what you've just agreed to carry. Your first day in the office is a Tuesday in September. The National Cricket Board headquarters is a 4-story building in the administrative part of the city, all glass and marble and framed photographs of past captains, men whose careers passed through this building like water through a pipe, shaped and directed and sometimes blocked entirely by the decisions made in rooms exactly like the one they've given you. Your office is on the 3rd floor. It has a window that looks out onto a small car park. There is a television on the wall, a whiteboard, a conference table that seats 8, and a filing cabinet whose top drawer contains the selection records of every player considered for national duty over the past 6 years. You spend the first 3 days reading every file in that cabinet. You're looking for patterns. Not just performance data, not just averages and strike rates and economy figures, though those matter. You're looking for the reasoning behind decisions. Why was a player dropped after 1 bad series? Why was another retained through 4? Why does a name appear consistently in the consideration list for 2 years and then vanish entirely? No explanation given. Some of these questions have answers buried in the meeting minutes. Some of them don't. Some of them point towards something uncomfortable that you file away in your mind and don't speak aloud yet. On your 4th day, you meet your panel. There are 2 co-selectors. Both are former internationals. Both are courteous. Both are watching you with the particular careful attention of men who are deciding whether you are someone they can work with or someone they will need to manage. You understand this. You've been in enough rooms to read it. You pour tea and you talk cricket for 3 hours, and by the end of it you have a rough measure of where each of them stands. One is sharp, instinct-driven, has strong opinions about batting orders and will defend them. The other is more political, more concerned with managing relationships than making hard calls. You'll need both of them. You'll have to learn which voice to trust in which moment. The first selection meeting is in 6 days. The squad announcement is for a 3-match ODI series against a mid-ranked touring side. On paper, it should be straightforward. It isn't. There are 3 players whose selection is politically loaded before you've even reviewed their numbers. One is the vice-captain, a senior batsman who averaged 23 in the last series but has a contract with the board's primary sponsor and a public profile that sells tickets. One is a young fast bowler from a region that has been complaining loudly and publicly about underrepresentation in the national setup. One is a spinner who is the personal favourite of the head coach, a man you haven't yet had a difficult conversation with but know you will. You sit with the data for 48 hours. The vice-captain doesn't make the squad. You write his name on the whiteboard and then you draw a line through it and you sit with that decision for a long time, because you know what it means. It means a press conference question you'll have to answer carefully. It means a phone call from his agent within 24 hours. It means the board chairman calling you the same evening to ask, with diplomatic phrasing that barely conceals its direction, whether you've considered the optics. You tell him you've considered the cricket. He goes quiet for a moment. Then he says he respects your process and trusts your judgment. You understand this means he will respect your process right up until it costs him something. The young fast bowler makes the squad. His numbers out of the last regional tournament are the best of any seamer in the country. This is not complicated. But the way your political co-selector exhales when you write the name down tells you that even obvious decisions have invisible weight in this building. The squad goes out on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, 2 former internationals have appeared on television to question your methodology. By Thursday evening, a journalist whose byline you know well has published a piece suggesting the vice-captain's omission is politically motivated. The irony is perfect. The one decision you made purely on merit is the one being called corrupt. You turn off your television at 9 o'clock. You review footage of the next potential selection target until midnight. You do not read the comments. 3 months in, you begin to understand the architecture of the system you're inside. The board is not a monolith. It is a collection of factions, each with its own agenda, each with its own preferred players, each with its own idea of what the national team is for. Some believe the team exists to win. Some believe it exists to generate revenue. Some believe it exists to represent specific regional or commercial interests that have nothing to do with either of those things. Your job, officially, is to pick the best 11 players. Your job, in practice, is to pick the best 11 players while navigating a pressure system that is constantly trying to bend your judgment without ever saying so directly. The methods are subtle. An invitation to a dinner where a sponsor is present and a certain player's name comes up in conversation. A phone call from a board member who just wants to flag that a particular regional association is feeling undervalued. A comment from the head coach in a selection meeting, seemingly casual, about how a specific player responds well to pressure, followed by a pointed silence that invites you to agree. You learn to hear what isn't being said. You also learn the players themselves. This is the part you didn't expect to feel so heavy. Because they are not names on a list. You watch them train, you attend domestic matches, you sit in the stands with your notepad and you watch young men who have spent their entire lives trying to earn a call-up that you now have the power to give or withhold. You watch a 22-year-old opener from a small city bat for 4 hours in a regional final and you know, watching him, that he has something the current top order doesn't. You write his name down in capital letters. You also watch a senior player, a man who has given 11 years to the national team, going through the motions in a way that tells you his best cricket is behind him. You know his family. You've had meals in his home. Dropping him will be one of the hardest conversations you'll have in this job. But not dropping him is a different kind of dishonesty, and you didn't take this role to be dishonest. The call takes 11 minutes. He doesn't cry. He's too much of a professional for that. But there is a silence near the end of the conversation that carries everything, and when you hang up, you sit in your car outside your house for a long time before going inside. The World Cup qualifying cycle begins and the pressure changes temperature entirely. Every selection decision now carries national consequence. The media coverage doubles. The online discourse is constant and mostly uninformed and occasionally vicious. Your family starts to feel it. Your wife mentions, carefully, that your daughter has been reading things online about you. You tell her to keep your daughter off those platforms. She looks at you with the expression of someone watching a person change slowly, like a tide pulling sand. You are changing. You can feel it. In the early months, you second-guessed yourself after every announcement. Now you make decisions faster, cleaner. You've developed a particular internal stillness when you sit down with the data, a way of looking at numbers that strips away every external voice and leaves only the cricket. This is the skill nobody talks about when they describe the role. It's not about finding talent. Plenty of people can find talent. It's about protecting your judgment from the constant pressure to compromise it. The qualifying campaign opens with 2 wins and a narrow loss. After the loss, the noise is immediate and enormous. The captain faces criticism for his tactical decisions. The bowling attack is called too inexperienced. A former selector appears on 3 separate television programs in 2 days to suggest that certain selection decisions were rushed. You know this former selector. You know that 2 of the players he is defending are represented by an agency he consults for. You say nothing publicly. You return to your office and you look at the data and you make your next decision. Inside the camp, things are more complex than the outside world sees. There are tensions between senior and junior players, the usual territorial friction of a squad that has been partially rebuilt. The head coach and captain occasionally form a front that operates slightly apart from your process, a small gravitational pull towards certain selections that you have to consciously resist. Not because their judgment is wrong, but because your independence is the only thing that makes this role worth having. There is one evening, midway through the qualifying campaign, when the chairman calls you into his office. He has a glass of water in front of him and he speaks for a while about the board's vision and the commercial partnerships and the importance of narrative in modern cricket. Then he mentions a name. A player who is not currently in the squad. A player whose numbers do not justify inclusion but whose profile, the chairman says, choosing the word carefully, is important to a particular sponsorship conversation. You look at him for a moment. Then you tell him that you'll review the player's recent domestic form and if it meets the required standard, the player will be considered. The chairman nods like this is what he wanted to hear. You both know it isn't. The player's recent domestic form does not meet the required standard. He doesn't make the squad. The chairman doesn't call you after the next announcement. This is its own kind of answer. You qualify for the World Cup. The night it's confirmed, there is a moment in the dressing room, a brief, electric collective exhale, and you stand slightly apart from it because your role places you outside the inner circle of the team. You are the person who decides who is in the room. You are not, fully, of the room. This is a loneliness that no job description prepares you for. The squad selection for the World Cup itself is the most scrutinized document you will ever put your name to. 15 names. Every one of them representing a decision that someone, somewhere, believes is wrong. You spend 3 weeks on it. You watch footage until your eyes ache. You have long conversations with your co-selectors, genuine debates that go late into the evening, positions defended and revised and occasionally abandoned. You bring in a performance analyst whose data confirms some of your instincts and complicates others. 2 names cause the most difficulty. The first is a specialist spinner who has extraordinary numbers but a history of breaking down under the physical demands of a long tournament. You select him. You take the risk because his ceiling is higher than anyone else's and tournaments are won in the moments when you need someone with a ceiling. The second is a finisher batsman who every person in the selection room wants to include but whose form in the 6 months before the tournament has been inconsistent in a way that worries you. Not the numbers. The numbers are acceptable. Something in the way he's playing. A hesitation. A searching quality. You've watched enough cricket to know what it looks like when a player is playing through something he hasn't resolved yet. You leave him out. The backlash is the loudest you have experienced. His omission is the story for 4 days. His supporters are vocal and organized. A petition circulates. 2 former World Cup winners call the decision baffling. Someone puts your photograph on a banner outside the board headquarters. You do not change the squad. The World Cup begins. You watch every match from the management box, a notepad on your knee, a phone you check less than you used to. You have done your part. The 15 players you selected are on the field. What happens now belongs to them and the coach and the captain and the particular luck that decides which catches are taken and which aren't. Your team wins 4 of the first 5 group stage matches. After the 4th win, a journalist you respect approaches you in a corridor and asks how it feels. You tell him it feels like cricket. He laughs like you've said something profound. You haven't. You mean it literally. It feels exactly like cricket. Uncertain, consequential, and never fully within anyone's control. The specialist spinner breaks down in the 6th match. He bowls 4 overs, pulls up with a side strain, and doesn't bowl again in the tournament. You watch it happen from the box and you feel the weight of the decision you made, the calculated risk that has now resolved against you. Nobody needs to say anything. The silence from your co-selector beside you says everything. You write a note to yourself in the margins of your notepad, not a justification, just a record, selected on ceiling, not durability. Review risk framework for future cycles. You make it to the semi-final. The semi-final is against the top-ranked team in the world, and your team plays some of the best cricket you have seen them play, and they lose by 11 runs in the final over. The captain plays an innings of such quality that you feel something close to grief when the last wicket falls, because that innings deserved a different result. In the dressing room afterward, the silence has a particular texture. You stand at the edge of it and you watch these 15 men process a loss that will live in them for years. Some of them will play in another World Cup. Some of them won't. You already know which is which, or you think you do, and that knowledge sits in you strangely. The debrief happens 3 weeks after the tournament ends. You sit in the same conference room where you had your first selection meeting and you go through every decision of the cycle. What worked? What didn't? What you would change? It is a thorough, honest conversation, the best kind. You walk out of it with 15 pages of notes and a clearer picture of the next 2 years than you had when you walked in. On the way out, your sharp co-selector stops you in the corridor. He tells you something you already know but haven't said aloud. He tells you that the way you handled the chairman's request, the player you didn't select despite the pressure, the entire board heard about it. Some of them respect it. Some of them are waiting for a moment to use it against you. You nod. You already know this. You've known it since the chairman stopped calling. You walk to your car. The city is loud around you, the ordinary noise of an ordinary evening, buses and traffic and someone's radio leaking music through an open window. You sit behind the wheel for a moment before starting the engine. Your phone lights up. It's the chairman. He wants to schedule a meeting. No details. Just a time and a place and that particular formality that exists in messages that are carefully constructed to reveal nothing. You set the phone face down on the passenger seat. You know what the meeting is about. You knew this moment was coming the way you know a delivery is going to be short before it leaves the bowler's hand. You've seen the field setting. You've read the body language. You know the system well enough now to understand that the system is never neutral. It is always moving, always applying pressure in one direction or another, and the only question is whether you move with it or whether you find a way to hold your line. You start the engine. Outside, the city keeps moving, indifferent and continuous, the way it always has. Somewhere across town, a 17-year-old is in a net session right now, bowling until his shoulder aches, batting until he can't see straight, dreaming of a name on a list that you haven't written yet. You drive home. The meeting is tomorrow.